So first, I'm setting up my backdrop. I'm going to do the tallest one first. So what I did for transport was just to detach the arches in half, the two bigger ones, and that way I can simply make my life easier, work smarter, not harder, and just reattach the top half to the bottom half of the arch, and then screw it in to the back. On both sides. I'm going to do the same thing with the middle arch. And then I'll fix the draping afterwards. It might take some maneuvering because the fabric is on it, which makes it a little bit more heavy, but it's much easier than having to reconnect all the pieces of the arch together. And I threw the drapes over the top for transport to make it easier, and also so my fabric does not get dirty. Then I'll re-secure this afterwards, but for now I'm just going to set it up so that it's already in the center, and then I'll come back and fine-tune that part of it. So in the back, I'm just making sure that my curtain is over the pieces that connect together at the top, and then like I said, I will fix my draping afterwards. Now to drape these, I just safety pin the bottom of this curtain to the side of this one, and then I just twist it in the back to hide the connection. And like I said, I'll fix those afterwards. Now you can't see the bottom of this from here, however, I will show you a picture of it when it was in progress, so at least you can see the bottom of the fabric. Then I'll put my smaller arch right here. And I did the same thing with this draping, and I'm just gonna stabilize it once more at the top. I also have some florals at the bottom. I'll show you how that looks as well. I know it's hard to see because the space is already set up with the tables and chairs, but I have that covered, so not to worry. I will show that to you as well. And then of course, I just fix the bottom of my draping. And in order for these not to swing, I will just put glue dots on the back of the frame, and that will allow it to stick to the curtains. So the first thing I want to do is just make sure my draping on the back is secure, that it falls nicely on the side. And of course, it's not going to be perfect, and that's just the point, right? It's not about perfection, but it's about just allowing the fabric to flow naturally sometimes, and that's what we're doing here. And we want to try to just tuck in the ends of the fabric so that they don't show. Right? Looking great so far. Then I'm going to put this behind the center one just to add some dimension here. I'm gonna bring it over just a tad. And then I'll stand to the back and just see if it is centered. And then I'll readjust accordingly. We also have to make sure we have space, so when our guests pull the chair out, it's easy for them to sit. So that's great. And I'm just covering the bases of the feet of my arches with the drapes. And then once again, just tuck in the seam of draping. And then just make sure that all our securements are in the back of the arch and above the attachment of the top of the arch to the bottom. And then I'm gonna put the balloons on this side and on the side of the smallest arch. That will also help us with draping our fabric and hiding any of the seams that we don't want to show. Once again, I'm just tucking in the ends of my fabric. And then I'm also going to put my glue dots, like I said, at the back to secure it to the curtains. Now this is a vision board party. So the idea behind this design is to make the backdrop look like a vision board. And that's why I chose these frames. Once in a lullaby. Once in a lullaby means once in a lifetime. And it's often used for babies, right? So there might be some women who come today for the event who want to have a baby. So this is appropriate for that as well. Follow your heart and you'll never go wrong. Of course, we already know that's true. And so when you have a vision, you want to make sure that, of course, you follow your heart so that it can come true. And our last one here is I am God's masterpiece. And these are women of faith. And it's also a reminder that they ought to think of themselves as royalty and as created for so much more. And so if they think of themselves as God's masterpiece, it will help their visions to come true as well.